Hey guys, today I have for you a highly requested video going over all of my TSM groups, operations, and settings. I wouldn't call this a beginner's guide or a setup guide for TSM. This is just the way that I have set up TSM so far in this 5 million gold from scratch series, and there are most likely much better ways to set up TSM. As I've stated in the first video of the series, I barely came back to retail a couple months after Classic released, so I haven't had the time to dive deep into all of the functions in TSM yet. However, you guys wanted me to show you what I've got so far in TSM, so that's what this video is going to be all about. Now obviously the first thing you're going to want to do is download TSM. You will find a link in the description below of TSM's main website where you can download the add-on for in-game, as well as you're going to want to download the desktop application for running in the background. And when you set up your account, you're going to want to add your servers that you play on to your profile data. That way the desktop application starts gathering the data for your servers and it will send it to your add-on in-game where you'll be able to find your market values and all the values that the desktop application picks up. Once you have fully downloaded and installed the TSM add-on and desktop application, you just want to go in-game and type /TSM into your chat box, and that will bring up the TSM dashboard. Once again, this is not a beginner's guide, so I'm not going to be going over every single tab or section of TSM. I'm only going to be going over the things that I have changed personally. And we're going to be starting out with these settings. I want to first go over the profiles under general settings. I highly recommend that if you're going to be making any changes to TSM, that you back up your current profile. I do this anytime I make any change, which is why I have quite a few profiles that I can choose from. What this does is if you ever encounter an error or you just don't like a change that you have created, you can immediately go back to when you last left off with TSM before an error occurred or before any of the changes that you might want to undo. This saves you a lot of time whenever you make a mistake or something like that, so I just highly recommend backing up your profile before you make any changes. The next tab I want to go over is the Tooltip Settings. I don't exactly remember what is default under Tooltip, so I'm going to go over all of the tabs. However, I'm going to do it pretty quickly because most of it is default. The first thing that I have in the main settings is I have everything checked except for display vendor sell price right here. I personally just like the default sell price being up at the top of the tooltip. I use the TSM tooltip for auction house needs. I don't use it for vendor needs, so I don't need my vendor sell price within my TSM section. I like it at the very top away from all the TSM information. It makes it easier to look at the information personally. And then going on to the value sources, under Realm Data Tooltips, I have everything checked except for display historical price because I don't use that for any of my auction house needs. And then for region data tooltips, I don't show region minimum buyout and region historical price once again because I just don't use those. Everything else should be by default, so as I click through these should look the exact same as yours, no matter what, unless you change them personally. And then moving on to the next and final tab of settings, I want to go over crafting. The only change that I add to crafting, the crafting section of the settings, is under the default material cost method. I add this function right here to the string. It is average by. Make sure you put a comma between average by and DB markets, that way they're separated in the string. And what this does is whenever you buy a material off of the auction house, it will calculate your profits right here in your professions tab based off of what you pay for the materials off the auction house. This makes it much more accurate than calculating it off of the market value because that will be 100% market value of the material, and most people, I would assume, buy materials for, let's say, like 80% market value or below. And it will not calculate that unless you have this average buy right here. So I highly recommend every person, if you have not yet done this, to do so. This is actually calculated per material that you purchase. So if you purchase materials at one price on one day and you purchase the same material for a different price on another day, it will actually calculate it as you craft. And you'll see the profit number actually changing as you craft, multiples, let's say, of the sumptuous cow. I buy 100 sumptuous fur, but 50 was one day, 50 was another day for a different price. It will actually tell me exactly how much I paid for every single material. It's very, very cool and accurate, which is why you want to put the average buy right there. Now, moving on, we're going to be going over groups first. I think that should be the easier one to go over. And in terms of groups, I kind of do it by default as well. where you go into your Professions tab, and you have your crafts right here, and there's another button right next to crafts says Groups. When you click on Groups, there are these 3 little dots over here to the right, and at the very bottom of the list you can see Create Profession Group. Now when you do that, it will actually create a group on its own within your TSM, and since we're going over tailoring, we'll use that as an example, and you'll get 2 subgroups right here. You'll get items and materials. Items are the crafts that you make, and the materials are the materials used for that craft. Now, when you do it this way, there is one downside to where it only will add items to the group if you currently can craft it and you've learned it from your trainer. If you have items that you have yet to learn from your trainer, then you actually won't see those be added to the tailoring group, or whatever profession you use. This is applied across all the professions right here. So there is that downside. Whenever you learn a new craft, you have to go back to the groups and create profession group again, and then it will add the new craft to the items, and if you don't have the materials yet added, it will also add the materials used to craft that new item. And you do have to do that every single time you learn a new craft for whatever profession you're using. So that is the downsides to you doing it this way. There are lists that you can import online that have every single item in the game under whatever type of groups you want. So if you want it like me, where it's per profession as the main groups, you can have all the items of every single profession and every single material if you just import it once. Or you can find any specific groups that you want that will tailor to your auction house needs. You can find on the auction, or not the auction house, on the internet. I'm getting kind of confused now. But yeah, there's so many groups out there. This is just the way that I do it, because we just came back to the game a few months ago, and we're kind of getting used to TSM as we go along. And this is the easiest way to get used to adding groups and making groups for your first time. Now, however, I do highly recommend expanding a little bit and not just using this items and materials, these 2 groups. You want to make specific groups for your specific needs that you personally use. So for me, I said this in a video before, I craft one of every item that is profitable, no matter what expansion it's from, and no matter what profit, no matter what sell rate. I craft at least one of each, as long as it's green. So the way that I do it is I leave everything that's not a current expansion item in this first items tab, and that way I will craft one of everything that I can that is profitable. However, when it comes to current expansion stuff, like this 8.3 tab for tailoring, I want to craft multiples of the end game armors here. So for the Uncanny, which is new to 8.3, is the end game crafting or crafted gear. It's the highest you can craft and sell on the auction house. I want to make at least 3 of each, because these have a much higher demand than some random old expansion craft that only a specific person wants. A lot of people want these Uncanny gears, or whatever version you want to craft right now. So I want to make sure that these craft 3 of each, not just 1 of each. However, I don't want to craft 3 of all the old world stuff, so they have to have their own groups. That way you can separate how much you craft them for. And this isn't like 100% accurate like my group names. As you can see, I have saddle chutes and sea breeze saddle blankets in the same group as 8.3. That's just because I want to craft 3 of those as well. So it's more based off of my operations rather than the items in the groups. That's how I have my groups laid out. So just keep that in mind if you do import my groups or you're just following along. I do kind of do things not like I don't follow exactly what the group name is. It's more about the operations that I use for them. So this is basically my craft 3 of each group. I just name it 8.3 because that's the main thing in that group. And then for bags as well. For bags, I want to craft 4 of each that's profitable and have 4 of them on the auction house at all times. So that's why bags have their own group as well, because they are being crafted 4 at a time, not 3 at a time, not 1 at a time. And then for Tide Spray Bracers, I have a group specifically for Tide Spray Bracers, not for any crafting operations, but actually for a mailing operation. So whenever you're doing the Tide Spray Bracer Shuffle, I may make a video on it, but there are a ton of videos already on it, so you can pretty much just go and Google Tide Spray Bracer Shuffle, and you'll find so much information on what I'm talking about. But for Tide Spray Bracers, I want to make sure that I mail off the blue ones to my Disenchanter or my Enchanter to disenchant, and I want to mail off the green ones to whatever alt needs expulsum at the time. But moving on to materials, I have only one subgroup here. I have BFA cloths, so basically for every single profession, I have the current expansion materials kind of separated from the rest, because when I want to run a shopping scan, I don't want to scan every single material of a profession at once. I only want to really scan the current expansion materials on the auction house every single day. You can obviously add more. Let's say you scan because you make bags or something for every expansion, say like Frostweave bags and then Netherweave bags and stuff like that. You can make more groups. Just me personally right now, I only really craft multiples of the current expansion material or crafts, and I only really care about the current expansion materials. So that is why they have their own group. And I do this for every single profession, so you can pretty much just carry this logic throughout all of the other professions. Quickly, I forgot to go over this common tab. Whenever you create your profession group within the TSM crafting page, it's actually going to add even the white items, the common items, because it's just everything you can craft. And I personally don't craft anything that's common, so I have its own group where all these items can just kind of lay to rest. I'm never going to touch these. They don't have any auctioning operations, they don't have any mailing operations, no crafting operations. They're only here because every time you hit groups and create profession group, it's going to re-add them if you delete them from your list. So if you don't want to touch commons and you don't want to craft them at all, you just add them to their own group and don't assign any operations to them, and never select them for like restocking, stuff like that. That way they're just kind of there to die. But yeah, like I said, I do this for every single profession except for one. And that one exception is actually Alchemy. Alchemy is a bit different than every other profession for BFA. When you have your BFA potions at rank 3, you have an additional chance to craft multiples of the same item with one craft. That's called a proc rate. And again, if you have the Silas Tools of the Trade, right here, the Silas Sphere of Transmutation, that adds an additional proc rate on top of your rank 3 proc rates already. And TSM does not calculate this by default. You actually have to personally go into TSM and set it up to adjust these profit numbers right here on the side to calculate the proc rates. You just have to manually do this, and I did not do this myself. I actually followed a video series from another YouTuber named Tsm Plays WoW, and I will have it linked in the description below. That is my source. I don't want to take his information and portray it as my own. I don't want to make the same series as his. You guys can just go check out his series, follow along him, and get the same results that I have. And that is how I have my alchemy set up. I don't really have to go over it because, once again, you could just go check out his series, see how you set up TSM to adjust for your proc rates with your Silas Tools of the Trade and with your rank 3 crafts. And it will be all set up nicely. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the professions. One extra thing is Transmog. That is not a profession. And also, once again, I did not create this group on my own. I actually imported it from a Reddit post, which I will have once again linked in the description below. That is my source of where I got this this group. It does come with operations as well, which is quite nice. And I highly recommend that you read the entire Reddit post that I have linked for this, because it tells you exactly why they have their operations set up the way they are. Just in case you might disagree with any of the points in the Reddit post or anything like that, I personally just imported it and I follow it as is. Just like with the alchemy section, I just followed blindly Tsm Plays WoW, and it works perfectly. So you don't really need to adjust it, in my opinion. I make tons of sales with Transmog and alchemy, as you see in this series. So yeah, once again, I don't really have to go over Transmog, just like I did it with alchemy, because it is not my own creation. I don't have anything to explain because it's already explained through the sources where I have got them from. So now we can finally move on to the operations. So going over all of my operations for auctioning, the first 3 here are once again from those posts in the description below. So I don't really want to go over them because I didn't create them. They explain them a lot better than I could. But I do have a couple variants of the Transmog operation that I have imported. I have added to the Transmog group this patterns group and the bags group, and this is for the patterns and bags that I've been finding while I'm out Transmog farming. You know, they're different bags from the bags that you get while you're crafting through tailoring. So they have a different group of items, I have a different operation for them, and the only thing that's different from the Transmog bags operation to the Transmog operation that I have imported is it's all the same pricing, it's just the post cap. I have it at 4, just like my crafted bags. I like posting 4 at a time when it comes to bags, and I just have this applied to the recipes as well, the patterns. They're actually, no, I don't have that for the patterns, it's only the bags. Never mind. I only post 1 recipe, but I do post 4 bags at a time. And then for crafted, Transmog crafted, this operation is for all of the old world stuff that I craft at a profit, like I was mentioning earlier. Basically just everything else in the game that's not current expansion. This operation is for that stuff. And it's the same as the Transmog operation for the maximum and normal price. However, I did change the minimum price to reflect that it's a crafted piece of item and not found through Transmog farming. And what that is this function right here. I just made this on my own. This could be the worst way to do it, but this is the way that I've done it and it has worked out for me. And what this is it's just kind of like a safety net minimum price right here, all this right here. And what this does is anytime you craft something, one day it could be profitable, the next day it could be unprofitable to craft something, you know, a negative. So this just makes sure that even if you craft it at a profit one day, you're always selling it at a profit of whatever you crafted it at. That's what crafting means. It's whatever you crafted the item at. So this just makes sure that I'm always selling things for at least a 10% profit of when I crafted it. And in case something dips below that price, it just won't post it. I have don't post when below minimum because it's unprofitable that day. And then also I have the same thing as or with an average buy function as well. And this is for, let's say, like you purchase, let's say you sell uncanny gear on the auction house, you know, the current epic gear. It's kind of like a competitive market, right? So you're getting undercut all the time. So let's say you sell an uncanny bracer for 10k, someone undercuts you by 3k. Some people might buy that item for that, you know, the 3k difference and try to sell it at what you were already posting at. So say 10k. So you know, you bought the item for 7k that the person undercut you. What this does is it makes sure that you're always selling that item that you bought for a profit of 10%. So if the person undercuts you by 4k the next day, then it won't post it because you bought the item for 7k and they're now posting theirs for 6k. That's cheaper than what you bought it at. It's not going to sell it for a loss. You know, this is just a safety net to make sure you're never losing money through either buying stuff or crafting stuff. And I have this for pretty much all of my own personal operations that I create myself. And then also 25% DB region market average minimum in case you haven't bought any version of that item and in case you haven't crafted that item. This is, you know, the last resort right here. Once again, this is just a safety net minimum price. I don't post things that are below minimum anyways, so it doesn't really matter the value for me personally in this box. It just makes sure that you're never losing money. That's it. Now, when it comes to my own operations, finally going over my own, we have the auctioning operation that I use for my 8.3 groups. So, you know, the current patch stuff that I want to craft 2 of, or craft 3 of, I sell 2 of, if that makes sense. So I craft 3, and I only sell 2. That just makes sure that if I sell one of them, that I have another one to post if I'm on that day, during the day. Most of the time I only log on in the morning and I'm just doing the standard, you know, craft and post anyways. But some days I am on and I do notice when I sell an item. That way I just have a backup for those situations. Now once again, I only post 2. This is for the 8.3 groups, so I only post 2 at a time of those because I'm on a medium pop server and that's pretty much the demand right there. Once again, I have this safety net minimum price. However, since it's called DB market, the minimum price that I have is a based off of my DB market. So that's your server's market value. So the minimum price I'll post something at is 60% of that value. And then this is just, you know, a standard maximum and normal price of 500% DB market and 120% DB market. So it's pretty standard stuff. Once again, I'm not the best with TSM, as you could probably tell as I'm talking about it, right? But this is just kind of the things that have worked for me. And then times 4, you know, DB market times 4, it's once again just for the bags. pretty much anything that's times 4 is for the bags. It's just a post 4 of. It's the same exact everything else. And then for DB market times 5,000, that's for basically all the materials and everything else that I haven't talked about yet. So let's say with blacksmithing, you know, you have this other group right here that I have created, and that's for the items like stirrups and hoof plates, the things that gatherers need every single day, and like skeleton keys. For when it comes to leatherworking, I have other group, and that's for like the Gems of Fury and stuff like that, the coarse leather bardings. All of that stuff is added to this operation right here, and that's just because I craft 20 of them. And you know, this is times 5,000 with the new patch 8.3 auction house. There's no more stack sizes, so I just have this to post everything that I have pretty much. So since I only craft 20 of them, which we'll go over when I go over my crafting operations, it doesn't matter what this number is set to. I'm always only crafting 20 of them anyways, so I will never have over 20. It's not going to post 5,000 of something you don't have 5,000 of. So this is kind of just like my my catch-all selling operation, auctioning operation for materials and the other stuff, and pretty much everything that's not times 4 or times 2 of. And once again, all the numbers are the same. I do have region average times 5. This is for selling battle pets. If I have 5 of a battle pet, I'll sell 5 of a battle pet. And this is, I used to use this for Transmog as well before I imported the Transmog group. But basically for Transmog and battle pets, you want to base your pricing off of the region market average rather than your DB market average, because the DB market is based off of your server specifically, and DB region market is based off of the entirety of your region, so US or EU. And those are much more accurate when it comes to Transmog and battle pets, just because the items are so rare and so uncommonly traded that your server's pricing will most likely be inaccurate compared to all the other servers. So yeah, that's basically, I only use it for the battle pets now, since I imported a Transmog operation. I have this just only for the battle pets now, and that is a 30% minimum, 190% maximum, and 110% normal DB region market average. There we go. Going over crafting, this is just for all my own needs right here. I have a lot of crafting groups because I craft different amounts of different items. I always make sure that my minimum profit is 20%. Like I said, I craft for pretty much any profit, and that's what 20% is. 20% is pretty much like, it could be a 1 gold profit, it could be a 10,000 gold profit. It depends on the crafting cost, right? So all of my crafting operations are just a 20% crafting minimum profit. And for crafting 1, that's to craft 1 of, and that's for these items group. Like I said, all the old expansion items, I just craft 1 of everything that's profitable. That's what this is. Crafting 1 of everything that is profitable by 20% of the crafting cost. So crafting 3, that's for the 8.3 stuff. Like I said, I craft 3 uncanny pieces of gear, but I only sell 2 at a time. That's because on a medium pop server, you're very rarely ever going to sell 2, but if you do, you just have that 1 extra to post right after. Crafting 4, can you guess what this is for? This is for bags, right? So this is for my tailoring bags group. I want to craft 4 of every single bag that's profitable through tailoring. That's what that group is for, or that operation. Crafting 10, that's to craft 10 of enchants, so BFA enchants. I have yet to really level up enchanting, so I don't use this too much. It's just for enchanting. Crafting 20, this is for those other groups that I was talking about, I believe. So the stirrups and the hoof plates and the skeleton keys, and like with leatherworking, the Gems of Fury and the coarse leather bardings. I craft 20 of those at a time, so that's what that group is for, or this operation is for. And then crafting 55, this is actually from the Alchemy video series that I was talking about from Sabaton Plays WoW. He crafts 55 of every potion, so I have that because I followed the video. Same thing with the rest of these. So the Silas proc times 20, Silas proc times 5, Silas proc times 50. That's from that video series from Sabaton Plays WoW for Alchemy. And then the if greater than function right here, this crafting function, this is from the Transmog import from the Reddit post. So once again, I didn't create those, so I can't really explain them to their fullest extent. They are already explained through the post in the description. When it comes to mailing operations, I only have two. I have one for they're both for Tight Spray Bracers. Because of the Tight Spray Bracer Shuffle, I have one mailing operation to the character that I want to send the greens to for Expulsum, and then I have another mailing operation to send the blues to for Disenchanting. So the target characters are obviously going to be your characters' names, not my characters' names. So if you do import my operations and groups, you will have to make sure to change those to your characters. But those are for that. This is it makes the Tight Spray Bracer Shuffle very easy to just click mailing and then click, I could show you really quick. You go to groups in the mailbox and then you just highlight Tight Spray Bracers and DE if you're using my groups or whatever they're called for yours. And then it will always send the blues because it does the lowest first. So DE is the blues, and it will send the blues to my Disenchanter, and then it will go up and it will send the greens to whatever needs the Expulsum. So, like I was saying, it makes it a lot easier to just click groups, click mail selected groups, and done. It'll automatically sort them out for you. So that's mailing. Those are the only mailing operations that I currently use. For shopping, I have shopping crafting. I believe this was covered in the Salmon Plays WoW video, but just in case it's not and I made this on my own, I just don't remember, I will go over it. So shopping crafting, I have for all of the items groups. So, you know, if you use the default method to make groups, I have shopping crafting. That's to make sure whenever you're shopping for an item that is crafted, it will base the market value off of the crafted value, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but some of you probably got that. And then I also have one for average buy, and this is for materials. So whenever you go to a shopping, and I could just show you. How about we just show you? That way you don't have to get it. You could just see it. So here we go. So I already have all of my materials selected. So if I hit run shopping scan, this percent right here, this market value, is based off of what I purchase materials at, not the market value on the server, because the market value on the server changes day by day. But what you pay for your materials does not, unless you buy materials after you've purchased them the first time. Again, if that makes sense. I'm a little bad at explaining things right now for some reason. But yeah, so you like the Storm Silver ore, it's selling for 5,000 gold. Let's see what I've bought Storm Silver ore at. 7 gold, 40 silver. So since I buy Storm Silver ore for 7 gold, 40 silver, this is 1,000% or more than I buy them for. That's what that means. That's what the average buy means. So this makes it to where you always know that you're buying items around, so like this 100%. That means I buy Riverbud at this price a lot. This is what I buy Riverbud at, 7 gold. If it's below 100%, that means it's cheaper than what you actually usually buy your materials for. So you probably want to buy it if it's below 100%. And yeah. I don't know why I'm so bad at explaining things right now. You have to forgive me. I'm sorry, guys. I think it's just because this video is so long. But that's what the shopping operations are for. And the only other thing, I don't do any sniping right now. You know, no flipping. I haven't got into that. I don't use any of the vendoring. But warehousing, I do the herbs to anchor transmute every single day on every single one of my alts. And what this is for is to just grab out the 35 herbs that I need every single week. I only like to restock once a week, and you need 5 of every herb if you look at the crafting, the crafted regions right there. You need 5 of every single herb, and it's a daily cooldown. So 7 times 5, that's 35. I only need 35 of every single BFA herb to do that every single day. So, you know, that's why I have this, just to make sure I go to my guild bank, I click restock, it puts 35 of every single herb into my inventory on all my characters that I go to the guild bank on, and then I only have to do that once a week. That's why whenever you see my inventory, I was gonna say inbox, but my inventory on all my characters, you usually see like 30 of all the herbs at the top right here. Not on this guy, it's a bad example, but usually if you've been watching the other videos, you always see like 25 or 30 of each herb on all of their inventories. That's what that is. It's because I'm always restocking each week to make sure I'm always crafting the daily cooldown for herbs to anchors. And that's pretty much it for everything. If we take a look here, I went over all of my operations. I went over the way I do groups. So I didn't go over all of my groups, but I went over the way I do groups. So everything else is pretty much the same as what I went over with the tailoring. Tailoring was just my example, but I just apply that logic to everything else. So yeah, when we go over to enchanting, I have BFA. BFA is basically 8.3 for enchanting because I don't have enchanting leveled up. So I just have a tab for BFA enchants. But once again, I have like the common tab with inscription. I have an 8.3 and a BFA tab. BFA is just for the contracts and scrolls, and then 8.3 is for the, that's my phone, there we go, but 8.3 is for the trinkets and the offhand for 8.3. So yeah, it's pretty much everything's the same going down. If you import the lists, it's pretty self-explanatory in my opinion, especially since this is not a beginner's guide, and you guys should be somewhat familiar with TSM. Once again, if you do need a beginner's guide and everything I was talking about in this video was like super confusing because I didn't really go over any of the basics with you guys, just Google TSM beginner's guide and there are going to be so many things that pop up that I don't really need to do that myself. So yeah, I hope I explained things well enough. This is basically just talking about my groups and operations, not telling you how to make groups and operations, because this is just going over something that you're going to import anyways, and importing just does all the work for you. This is just to kind of explain the logic behind all of the things that you will import if you choose to import my groups and operations, which a lot of people wanted to do. And once again, this is not a complete list of everything. Like my inscription, my enchanting, and my jewel crafting don't have a lot of items populated in those groups because I haven't done a lot of crafting with them yet. So these are groups and operations that I will be changing over time and adding to over time. This is just so far currently at this point in the 5 million goal from scratch series where we are at with our TSM. So yeah, once again, I hope that this was helpful to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like, and if you haven't yet, click that subscribe button plus the bell next to it so you can be notified whenever I upload a video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.